in Miami, Refuah Shelema David Ben Yafa, and we also pray for Refuah Shelema of Rina Bat Leah, Moshe Ben Silia, Mazal Bat Esther, and Sion Ben Sarah. May Hashem give him Refuah Shelema among the Holim of all of Am Israel. Amen. Anybody interested in sponsoring the classes for the Torah or the synagogue, please speak to me privately. I will give you details after the class. The Gemara of today brings interesting ideas that happened many centuries back that today became part of who we are as a nation. The Gemara talks about Tinokot Shel Bet Rabban. Tinokot Shel Bet Rabban refers to young children who learn regularly in the Kitab, in the Talmud Torah, in the Yeshivot. And the Gemara talks about a great person by the name of Yoshua ben Gamla. Yoshua ben Gamla was a great man who saw a problem in his time. What was the problem that he see? He sees that children that have parents and parents that can afford to hire a Torah teacher, the children learn Torah. But the children who has v'shalom were orphans, or the parents could not afford the teacher, they did not learn Torah. And guess what? That obviously will become a recipe for disaster. Why? It means that if your father has money, you can learn Torah. If your father is poor, you cannot learn Torah. Has v'shalom. Torah has no limits. Torah has no boundaries. So therefore, what did he do? He said, Hitkinu, Shiyomoshivim elamedei tinokot b'Yerushalayim. They started with Yerushalayim to establish like the first Talmud Torah in history. Although before this takana, parents used to teach the children, as the pasuk says, "Belimatem otam et benechem ledaber bam." The mitzvah ta'aseh from the Torah is that a father must teach Torah to the child. But what happens? Today, unfortunately, many times people rely on the school system. And the truth is that although the schools are great and the school try to do great work, but at the end of the day, whatever the kids learn in school, in order for that to become an integral part of the life of the young generation, they must see an example at home. They must support at home whatever the school teaches them. So based on this statement, so what do we understand? That the school supplements the house. Not that the house is supplemented by the school, because the school doesn't get involved usually in whatever happens in a person's home. But if Be'ezat Hashem, a child has a good spiritual support system and a living example at home, plus the school that the father and mother decide to send the children to become productive members of Am Israel, also that makes a huge difference in how the development of the young man was. So therefore the Gemara tells us that Yoshua ben Gemala made a takana שהיו מושיבים מלמדי תינוקות בכל מדינה ומדינה ובכל עיר בעיר. In every single town, in every single city, he established this network of Talmudei Torah in order for the children to have the Torah accessible in the same city that they lived. Why? Because imagine yourself, if a city doesn't have a good system, what do you need to do? You need to send the children out of town. Now, you will not send a child in such a young age to travel to a different village. You're going to wait till the boy becomes a teenager or even finishes high school, and only then we're going to send them out. So what happens if the kid happened to be born in a town, thank you so much, that there was no Talmud Torah system, so it meant that the child didn't learn. So therefore Yoshua ben Gemala made a takana that in every single town, in every single city, they need to have a Talmud Torah system. And basically, from this Gemara of today, it comes the system of the Yeshivot, Talmudei Torah, Bet Yaakov. Obviously today is much more we can say, organized and professional the way it used to be in the olden days. In the olden days, what they have for school, they went to a synagogue, they went to a midrash, they found an empty room, and this is how the teachers taught Torah to the children. But Baruch Hashem, with the advancement of life and technology and the changes in mankind, so Baruch Hashem, the system becomes a bit more organized than the way it may have been many years back. Is the system a perfect system? The short answer is no. There is no perfect system, be'emet. And I hope that nobody takes it the wrong way. But what I'm trying to say is that when you deal in a school, okay, there is a lot of varieties and there is a lot of items and ideas that they need to be put into perspective and to see what's the most beneficial, who your crowd is, what can you do to enhance the level of learning and the level of observance, which at the end of the day, this is what schools need to do. Not only to make professionals, but to make professional Jews, meaning to say Yehudim that are professionals in the way of life, starting with Irat Shamayim, Midot Tovot, Torah learning, secular education. Nobody is against teaching the children, learning and writing and whatever skills you need to confront life later on. Not everyone is going to become a rabbi or a Rosh Yeshiva or a Mekubal. You know, the Gemara says, from 100, if you get one, from 100 of Chumash, you get one for Mishnah. For 100 of Mishnah, you get one of Gemara. From 100 of Gemara, you get one of Halakha. What is the Gemara is trying to say? That even the learning, you know, as long as that the foundation of the person is strong, we're giving a tool to the young generation to be able to survive spiritually. I'm not talking about surviving financially and surviving physically. You don't need me to tell you that. But we're talking about surviving in a spiritual way in a very challenging aspect of world. And that's why the Shalah HaKadosh, the great Shemuel HaLevi Horowitz, who wrote the Sefer Shuno Luchot HaBerit, composed a special prayer that many people recite this prayer on a regular basis. What is the prayer about? Praying for the spiritual welfare of the children. Why? Because just educating children alone doesn't cut it. Giving a good example is important. Good environment is important. Good friends is important. Good schooling is important. Today I saw something when I left the home to come to pray that bothered me tremendously. I'm going to say it, but I need a cup of hot water before I speak further. Thank you so much. Hot water only. The other one to your left. Thank you so much. I'm a bit under the weather, but we'll continue. Thank you. Take it easy, don't speak. You want to give the shiur today? Short and sweet. Thank you so much. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiya v'tbaruch. I'm going to say something that perhaps is not very popular, but I'm not running a popularity contest. We're here to learn and to understand. And I saw a child going to school. And the way I saw this child dressed concerned me, because it didn't appear that a child was going to a Jewish school. It appeared that was going to a public school, or it appeared that was going to a nightclub. Haz v'shalom, if you get the drift, what I'm trying to say. And I hope that the parents are listening. I'm not sure if they are in the list. I'm going to find out who this child is. But I hope that they listen, because when you come to make a determination also on the schooling that you're going to send your children, you need to make sure that the environment of the school is healthy, is appropriate. A father confessed to me later that the first time his child utilized substance abuse, so to speak, forbidden drugs, was in a school given by another classmate. Baruch Hashem, a million times, that it didn't take a toll in the life of the person and it didn't ruin the life of the person. But we know very, very well that these types of addictions can be dangerous and detrimental to the welfare of the child. If it's a boy, if it's a girl, if it's through alcoholism, or if it's through drugs, God forbid. But I'd like to add to the pile the way students dress to go to school, especially girls. Boys is easier. But when it comes to girls, we also need to keep our eyes open. Why? Because the topic of seniut, of modesty, is not something that is applicable only when someone is at home or when somebody is on the street. But also part of the seniut is that a man, mahila, that a lady needs to make sure that she does not become an excessive attraction to men. And maybe the word excessive should be deleted. Attraction. What I'm trying to say, obviously dressing elegant is beautiful, seniut is wonderful, but when a person or a girl or a lady wears a shirt that is too short, or something that is too tight, or something that is not seniut the way we understand, guess what? Not only it creates a spiritual problem for her, it creates a spiritual problem for her husband, it creates a spiritual problem for the family, and it creates a spiritual problem for those men that cannot control the Yetzer Hara looking. And what I'm saying, perhaps lady says, Rabbi, I want to dress nice. Of course, the Torah is not against a lady dressing nice. Dressing nice is beautiful. But the Gemara and the Pasuk says, Kol kevudav ad melech penima. Thank you so much. The beauty of a Jewish wife is not based on the dress code, but is internal. Meaning to say, on her midot tovot, irat shamayim, derech eretz. And we all know very well, that for ladies, seniut may be more of a challenge than for men. But the husbands, and that's where the husband play a huge role, they also need to support the wives dressing in a seniut way. Like a lady told me in the class, my husband doesn't let me. My husband doesn't let me to dress proper. I said to him, is your husband normal? That is the same question I ask me, she tells me. So I speak to the husband. No, but I like when she dresses that way. I said, but let me ask you a question. Do you like that men turn around and ask me, is this girl available? True story, by the way. No, Haz v'shalom, I break the head. I said, guess what? Every time your wife comes to shul and dresses the way she dresses, she's causing men to look at her. And men sin by looking. Don't kid yourself. Men sin by looking also. When we talk about Shemirat HaEinayim, okay? What does it mean, Shemirat HaEinayim? That a person needs to be careful what they look at. Why? Because that brings to the mind Hirhurim, and brings Ta'ava, and brings Hemda, and God forbid can bring an Avon of Zera Levatala. God forbid. So finally, after putting all the cards on the table, the husband said, Rabbi, you are right. Which it wasn't easy. It took me half an hour to convince him why is wrong his approach. I was expecting that in 5 minutes he will say, you're right, please forgive me. But it took me half an hour to convince. Is it perfect today? No. But Baruch Hashem, much better than it was a while back. So it is important, Rabotai, that when we make a decision based on today's Gemara to send kids to a Jewish school, don't look at it only convenience. Is 5 minutes away from home. You know that there are Jewish schools here that we're not even talking about the reform or conservative, that they call themselves middle of the road Orthodox, that unfortunately many times students organize birthday parties on Shabbat. And when they send a birthday invitation, they ask you kosher meal or regular. Haz v'shalom. And I'm not going to say the name of the school, not to ruin the school or ruin people's lives. But Rabotai, we need to open up our eyes and don't look. Many times people say, no, but that school has a basketball court and has a soccer field and has a swimming pool. All that is beautiful. And we're not against exercise, after school activities. The kids should have somewhere where to release all the energy and all the strength and all the, let's call it dynamics that their body have. But sending a kid to a Jewish educational system needs to be the proper one. For example, universities, right? Universities, okay? The biggest source of addictions, immorality, and assimilation comes from colleges, like it or not. That's why today there is a proliferation of many religious institutions that they offer college graduate class. If it's for ladies, if it's for men, separate time for men, separate times for ladies. Or you can go to, for example, Torah College is one of them, and Landa Yeshiva for men is another one. I'm not going to say all the names because I don't know that many, but I do know that when I read the kosher paper at home from Brooklyn, I see advertised accounting classes with a degree, CPA track, graphic designer, social work, special education, speech therapy, and all that is done in a good, healthy Torah environment. That you are able to have a degree, you are able to have a career, but at least you did not expose yourself to an environment that if the person doesn't have a strong and good foundation, they will not survive. And this is something, Rabotai, speak to any of the boys that are here of college age, and they will tell you what's going on out there. And that's why it's important when before a parent, I'm going back to the young age, to make a decision of a good environment, good teachers, and all the good things that supplements whatever the homes have. Let's switch to the topic of today. The topic of today is about the topic of the Ketoret. It's not a new topic, but it's a topic that is very close to us because the Ketoret is read 3 times a day. Before Shaharit in Korbanot, at the end of Shaharit Kaveh Hashem, and before Mincha. Now, what was the Ketoret in a nutshell? The Ketoret was Be'ahad Asar Samamanim Ayuba. They were a combination, the incense of 11 different types of herbs and spices, and this was the duty of the Kohen Gadol every day to make the offering of the Ketoret. Obviously today, we don't have the Ketoret, but we read the Ketoret. Many people are meticulous in having a Ketoret made out of parchment, which is beautiful. You're not obligated to do so. If you have it, beautiful. And if you don't have it, also beautiful. Because according to some opinions, you should not have it. Sure. Why? Because you're writing paragraphs and segments of the Torah, not being as a whole parasha. But that's a different shi'ur, but it doesn't matter. I repeat, you can have it, and it's not a problem whatsoever. But don't feel bad if you don't have it, because the whole idea is the reading of the Ketoret. Now, استنى شوية. What's the source of the Ketoret? So for that, we need to go back to the celebration of Shavuot. We learned in the past that when Moshe Rabbeinu went to get the Torah for Am Israel, the Malachim, the Gemara tells us, were not willing to give the Torah so easily. And they asked Moshe Rabbeinu, what they asked, what a human has to do among us. So finally, Borei Olam says to Moshe, hold yourself to my throne and talk to the Malachim. And Moshe goes through the 10 commandments. And according to what we learn, every Malach gave Moshe Rabbeinu a gift. Natata matanot ba'adam, the Pasuk says. Pasuk in Tehillim. Matanot, gifts. What are the gifts? The gifts refers not only to the Torah, but the gifts that the Malachim gave to Moshe Rabbeinu. Among the gifts that Moshe Rabbeinu received, because we need to remember, Beyom Hatunato Ubiyom Simchad Libo Sheshelamoh HaMelech, this refers to Matan Torah, as the Mishnah writes at the end of the Gemara. So what gift the Yeser Hara gave to Moshe Rabbeinu, the Zohar says? The Ketoret. The secret of the Ketoret. What is the secret of the Ketoret? The Zohar says that he omedet levatel cheshafim. It says there is nothing more desired and beloved by Hashem like the concept of the Ketoret. The Ketoret has the power to nullify witchcraft, bedevarim ra'im mehabayit, and to send negativity or evil things from the home of the person. Now, what is the message of the Ketoret? So one of the answers given is that the Ketoret, in a way, demonstrates a certain level of unity. That you take 11 spices and you put them together. And I guarantee you that not all of them had a pleasant smell. There was one or two that by itself you would not be able to smell it. Only the smell was enhanced when it was mixed together. It's like you make a cake. Usually a cake is sweet or salty. Usually sweet. But ask your wife, the recipe calls for some salt. You need to add some salt into the sweet cake. Or you need to add some sugar into the soup to break the flavor. There is such a thing. The sugar or salt can become like the antidote of the actual recipe, so to speak, to break the smell, to break the flavor. I'm not a cook, but I'm a son and I'm a husband and I'm a father, so I know a bit about food. Baruch Hashem, I'm human, by the way. So therefore, as human, the other day I asked my wife, she was out of town. She's going out of town as we speak also now. And I asked her over the phone, can tell me how to do this dessert. She gave me a whole Shulchan Aruch. I said, you know what? Forget about it. I wait till you come back. You got to add this, you got to do. I said, this is for what? This is for what? But this is the way. So the Zohar says a very fascinating thing, applicable for each and every one of us. And the Zohar says, Shekol hamistakel umitbonen vekore vechol yom et maaseh haketoret. A person who looks and thinks and reads the Ketoret daily, hareuk nitzol bazeh, that day that a person reads it, is protected mikol devarim hara'im והחישופים שיש בעולם. וכן ניצול מפול פגעים רעים ומהרהור רע ומדין רע וממוות, ולא ינזק כל אותו היום, שלא יכול הסטרא אחרא לשלוט עליו. I read it in Hebrew because I suspect that many people in the room read Hebrew and understand Hebrew. So did you listen to the reactions as I was reading? Wow, psst, ooh, wow. All these reactions. I'm going to give you the reactions in English now. It says as follows, that a person who looks at and thinks and reads daily the offering of the Ketoret, this person will be saved from all hardship and witchcraft that exists in the world, and all kinds of tragedies or accidents, all kinds of negative thoughts, all kinds of bad judgment against the person, and even from death. And the person will be protected that day, because the negative forces don't have the power on the person who says the Ketoret. And that's a reason why when it comes to the second paragraph, Tanu Rabbanan, Pituma Ketoret Kesad, right? In the middle, what do we say? Be'ahad asar samamanim ayubah be'eluhen. There were 11 spices. And what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to count them. You count them, you should have 11. And the Zohar Kadosh adds one more bonus statement, and it says, "In bnei adam hayu yodaim." If people will have known how beloved is in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu the Ketoret, hayu lokhim kol milah u'milah mimena, people will have taken every single word of the Ketoret, ve'ayu ma'alim otam le'atara al rosham becheter shel zahav. For every word of the Ketoret, people will make a crown out of gold and put it in your hands. How many words the Ketoret has? Hundreds. From the Ketoret. Ata Hashem Elokeinu, Ukshanim Kalmoniot. Hundreds of words. So can you imagine for a second that for every word we do a crown? Obviously, we know that this may sound to many of us exaggerating statement, as the Gemara mentioned the other night. But bottom line, I think what the Zohar Kadosh is trying to say is that don't minimize the value of saying the Ketoret. Yes, we don't have the Ketoret today, we don't have the Bet HaMikdash, but we do have the text. And we already learned this 2 weeks ago when we were talking about, I'm going to raise the mic a bit, when we were talking about the concept of the Korbanot. What did we say? That today we don't have the Bet HaMikdash, unfortunately. But yet, how do we fulfill the mitzvah of Korbanot? By learning about them, by reading them, by talking about them. It's like the Gemara mentions concerning Shemitah, right? The mitzvah that the land rests every 7 years. So we cannot fulfill the mitzvah of Shemitah being in America. And what if a person doesn't own a piece of land of Israel in Israel? So how do we fulfill the mitzvah of Shemitah? Short answer, by talking about it, by discussing the halachot about it. Same thing with the Ketoret. Continues the Zohar Kadosh and it says, "Umishemishtadel bazeh ve'omer et HaKetoret." A person who makes the effort in this matter and reads the Ketoret, he should look into the Maaseh of Ketoret to try to understand what it means. And what happens, as Zohar Kadosh says, it brings great benefit to the person, to the world, salvation, protection, etc. The question is, what is exactly the purpose of the Ketoret? So the short answer is unity and connection. Ketoret, in the Hebrew language, we have certain letters that can interchange with each other. Sometimes there is something called Adbash. Adbash means Aleph Taf, Bet Gimal, Bet Mehila, Bet Shin, Gimal Resh, Dalet Kof, etc. That's one, for example, Advash. Or for example, on Shabbat, Tashrak, Tikanta Shabbat, Ratzita Korbenoteha, Sivita Perusheha, Eim Sedure Nesacheha. The order is retroactive. Starts with a Taf and finishes at the end with the Aleph. For example, Eshet Hail, the Friday night poem to the wife, is on the order of the Aleph Bet. Why? The Zohar Kadosh writes that the Hebrew letters, the Aleph Bet, is Tzinorot HaShefa. It's the pipes of abundance that come to the person. Now, the Zohar Kadosh explains also that the letters in the Hebrew alphabet, they have replacements. For example, what is the match of the letter Tet, for example? The short answer is the letter Shin. So if I take the word Ketoret, Qatar, which is the original word, and I have the Tet, I put the Shin instead, it gives me the word Kesher. Kesher means connection. Connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And the Zohar Kadosh discusses the great level of happiness that this brings to Borei Olam in Shamayim. And the Zohar talks about like a reaction, like a cosmic reaction in Shamayim of blessing, of Kedusha, and Simcha. we don't really understand, but the Zohar says at the end, Bekosher kesharim lemala ulemata leyahed et kulam. How was the ketoret? The Kohen burned the incense and the smoke went upwards to the heavens. The Zohar said before that when the Kohen did the ketoret, he was able to see Hashem's name, Yod Ke Vav Ke, flowing in the air. We don't understand how this concept applies because the last time we saw this was in Matan Torah, when the pasuk says, "Vechol ha'am ro'im et hakolot." The nation sees the voices. Usually, voices is not something that you can see, but in this case, the Zohar says that it created such a spiritual reaction that Hashem's name was formed by the smoke of the ketoret. So to summarize this, the pasuk tells us that in the moment of a plague, the maaseh of the ketoret can have benefits to stop the plague. And the pasuk says, "Bate'asar hamagefa, behamagefa ne'asara." Rashi asked, this is one incident in which the Jewish people rebelled against Hashem, against Moshe Rabbeinu, and Hashem's anger was so great that people started to die. And Aharon went to Moshe, what do I do? Moshe says, do the ketoret, and the ketoret will appease HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lo and behold, Aaron HaKohen is about to do the ketoret. Comes the Yeser Hara, and he says to Aharon, don't do it. Why not? Because God gave me permission to take people with me. True, but Moshe Rabbeinu told me to do the ketoret. So the Yeser Hara says to Aharon, are you telling me that Moshe Rabbeinu is greater than God? God is telling me to execute, and Moshe says, stop the execution. Aharon says to the Yeser Hara, do you think that Moshe Rabbeinu will do something that Hashem will not agree with? So Rashi says a very interesting concept. Mishenitan reshut lamashhit lahbol en mavdil ben tzaddik lerasha. When God forbid there is a permission from the heavens to wake the people up, once that permission is given, many victims will be. In what sense? I'm going to bring an example that is not a pleasant example, it's an unfortunate example. But Haz v'Shalom, throughout our life, we have heard explosions. We have heard acts of terrorism. If it's in Israel, if it's in America, if it's in Europe, if it's in South America, en bait asher en sham met. No country today can say we have zero anti-Semitism. We have anti-Semitism all around. 2 nights ago, I'm sure you heard this, in Argentina, in the middle of the night, they went into the chief rabbi's home of the Jewish Federation, who he happened to be my teacher in the yeshiva when I was a child. Okay, wonderful Talmid Hacham. His wife was tied up, and they beat him up. He's in the hospital with 9 or 10 broken ribs. And when they beat him up, they said to him, we are beating you up because you are the chief rabbi of the Jewish Federation in Argentina, which you need to understand. Not all Jewish federations always see eye to eye with the Torah. I cannot comment about the rest of the world, but in Argentina, the Jewish Federation is guided by the Shulchan Aruch. Do you understand that? Do you understand what that means? The rabbi is a Talmid Hacham, and the leadership is of great people, and the presidents are all Shomrei Shabbat. Sometimes these programs have people that they feel Jew at heart, but they don't observe Judaism. And that's why the other day they sent me an appeal card. Stana shwaya. To donate. And then they gave me a menu of what I want to donate for. So when I saw that one of the options is to support same-gender marriage and same-gender living facilities, I said to them, regretfully, I cannot put my money in an institution, Jewish institution, that openly support things on a way that the Torah sanctions it as to'eva. Do you understand what I'm saying? You need to make sure that your money goes to a kosher place. Why? Because if it doesn't go to a kosher place, guess what? That is not tzedakah. That is not ma'aseh. You don't know? Ask. But when I saw this item, and I picked up the phone, and I spoke to the secretary of the person who signed the letter. And I said, I want you to take my name and number, and who I am, because sometimes you can give anonymous tips, right? Anonymous comments. But I said to them, I'm very disappointed that something that represents Judaism, in theory, should support things. No, but there are Jewish people who are like that. That was part of the answers they gave me. I said, so what? Because they have an illness, I need to, God forbid, become contagious with that? And we're not minimizing that kind of condition, but definitely is in a spiritual, slight, psychological, or even emotional condition. And we're not saying that there is not teshuvah. Of course there is teshuvah. But that, from that to support a program that encourages that type of behavior is definitely completely out of line. So I think that the Zohar of today reinforced something that we should have been doing from day one. But since sometimes people pick and choose what they read, what they pray, let us hope that the Zohar of today will encourage that we don't minimize the importance of the Katori. Now, this is my water, right? I said the beracha before, right? Okay. I'm going to paraphrase the Musar of today, discussing the topic of leadership. Does becoming a leader is beneficial to the person or is dangerous to the person? What do you think, Professor? Short answer is dangerous. Unless you are humble and you are someone that acts in a godly manner. I'm in a position of leadership, but I'm humble on the position that I have. Not that I'm a humble person, I'm far from humble, so I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I just said. I'm humbled by the position that I have. And I need to remember very often, more often than you think, that whatever I am in my life, it's out of the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because if I don't have that, we don't reach the corner. But not only leadership of synagogues, or if it's presidents of synagogues, of leaderships in whatever level it may be. So it says the Musar of today that there were certain Hachamim, and it says here an interesting statement in the name of Ravuna. And it says someone who was appointed in a position of leadership for Am Israel. So it says, you took upon yourself this, but it says, stay away from the leadership. So hold on. If it's telling you, stay away from the leadership, so how do we survive without leadership? Can you survive without leadership? No, every country needs a president. Every rabbi, every shul needs a rabbi. Every school needs a principal. Every Hasidic movement needs to have leadership. Every yeshiva needs to have a rosh, needs to have a rosh yeshiva. What happens if a person has no leadership? Obviously, the consequences are very serious. So it says the Musar of today that a person needs to look into the Torah and find the formula to be able to become a good leader. So it says as follows, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Almighty says, Ani Kadosh, Ani Hasid. I'm holy and I'm pious. And Rashi brings this a bit more expanded with the mitzvah according to some opinions. One opinion says that the following statement is a mitzvah from the Torah. Other opinion says that it's not a mitzvah of the Torah, but it's a way of life. The pasuk says two words, Ve'alachta vidrachav. A Jew must walk in the footsteps of God. A Jew must follow in the ways of God. And Rashi asked a question, how can a person get so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The pasuk says already back in the beginning of Sefer Devarim, Ki Hashem Elokecha Elkana Esh Ochla Hu. God is fire. And when you see fire, what do? You stay away from fire. You don't get close to the fire. So Rashi says no, that this pasuk is teaching us that a person in their own ways, in their own life, they need to be able to act in a godly manner. It doesn't mean that you're going to fast 7 days a week. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get married and have kids and make money and enjoy your life. Doesn't mean none of the above. But Rashi says, how does the person behaves as a person? So Rashi says, Ma'urahum afatarahum. Like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is compassionate, merciful, heals the sick, provides for the needy, takes care of the widows, takes care of the orphans, buries the dead, visits the sick. A Yehudi in their own fashion, obviously in a much more smaller scale. We're not telling you to support the world, but try to be nice to people. As the Gemara writes in Masechet Ta'anit, the Gemara talks about Rabba Rahaba, and they ask him, tell me, great Rabbi, how did you marry to live such a long life? So you know what he says? Le'olam lo ikpadti al haverai. I never make a big deal out of things in my life with people, and I never raise my voice at home, and I never installed fear in my wife. Powerful statement. And the Gemara reinforces this in Masechet Shabbat. The Mishnah writes in Shabbat, the Mishnah that we say on Friday night, Shelosha devarim sarich adam lomar betoch beto erev Shabbat im hashecha. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. There are three things that a husband must say, and I'm talking about betoch beto. Stand shwaya, please. Thank you. I'm not in the best mood today, so I apologize for my quick reactions. If I don't feel well, I feel that I'm 50% performance, like the battery, you know? I may be 25 now. But nevertheless, because you're here, I'm here. Because you're here, and I know I have a lot of customers waiting for the class, I'm making this extra effort of speaking. The doctor said to me, don't speak for 3 days. I said, it's impossible. So he tells me, talk less. I said, okay, instead of an hour, I speak 45 minutes. So I'll give you a discount today, Be'ezat Hashem. So the Gemara asks, what does it mean? Le'olam shelosha devarim sarich adam lomar betoch beto. If you are talking to your wife, of course you are talking inside of your home. You know what the Gemara teaches us? That the husband is not allowed to speak louder than the volume of the voice that will be heard someone in the outside. So what is the Gemara is telling you? Don't scream at home. Don't raise your voice. You can raise your voice if you're going to sing Shabbat songs, or you tell your wife, I love you, and you want the whole building to know. That may be permissible. But to scream, especially in a negative way, the Gemara says, "Le'olam alatil adam ema yetera betoch beto." That a husband needs to make sure that fear does not dominate the marriage. Why? If the husband is afraid of the wife, no, we can deal with that. But if the wife, God forbid, is afraid from the husband, that is dangerous. It's a recipe for disaster. Now, why a wife should be afraid of her husband? I hope that none of our wives are afraid of us. Haz v'shalom.
They have respect.
Respect is different. You respect your wife respects you. Marriage is a two-way street. You give and you receive. The problem that some people in marriage is that they expect to receive and then they give. And the Torah says no. In last week's Torah portion that we're going to read again this Shabbat, as we know, is Perasha Shekalim. The same reading that we had last Shabbat, we're going to read the very first paragraph. And sometimes the Torah talks to us by words of the Torah. So the Pasuk says, Venatenu. Venatenu means, and you shall give. But interesting enough, that the way that the Torah, and I'm going to do this in writing, because I think you will benefit it more. Look here, please. The Pasuk says, Venatenu. Venatenu means, and they shall give. So interesting enough, you have Vav, Vav, Nun, Nun. Either way you read the word, either way you read the word, you read it the same. But that's not the Hidush. The Hidush is in the Ta'amim. The Ta'am for this word is Azla Gerish. Azla Gerish. No. That's Dargat Tevir. Please, let me do the talking. Please. Venatenu. Venatenu. That's how it's Azla Gerish. But look at the sign. Part of the sign, I'll do it now, because even the tunes of the Aliyah have a lot of meanings. This is the tune. Azla Gerish. Azla Gerish. When you give, you receive. That's the symbol here. This is the siman. This is you. You give, comes back to you. You give love. Ping pong. Yes. Ping pong. Ping pong, good idea. You give charity, you give maaser, you treat people respectfully, it's going to come back to you. There is much more things to say, but I think, yes, whatever you plant, you will harvest, correct, as well. So bottom line, the Gemara is sending a message to the husband, thank you so much, that Shalom Bayit is not only, or marriage, I should say, is not only having a wife, having home, having children, and being a good supporter. Part of the success in marriage is kavod, right? Kavod, respect between husband and wife. Be'ezat Hashem, this coming Monday, for the ladies Midrashah program, we're going to have a speaker that the name of the shiur will be GPS for a happier marriage. How to use a GPS to have a happy life, which I think we all need it. For ladies only this time, but Be'ezat Hashem will share some ideas the day after Be'ezat Hashem. So I'd like to wish everybody to have a lovely day. And with this, I'll finish the class. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.